Hey everyone, I've just got to share something pretty fascinating from an interview between Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and CNN's Jake Tapper yesterday. The conversation covered a lot of ground, but one key part that stood out was about Trudeau's decision to step down, as well as Trump's comments about Canada potentially becoming the 51st state of the United States. Yeah, you heard that right. Trump actually said that, but what really made this interview interesting is how Trudeau responded and how it tied into some deeper political issues. Let's break it all down. First, you have to understand the context. Trump, in his usual style, was needling Trudeau about the idea of Canada joining the U.S. as the 51st state. It's one of those things Trump has said before, mostly just to get a reaction. You can tell he enjoys teasing, but when Tapper asked Trudeau about this, it was clear that Trudeau wasn't having any of it.
President-elect Trump has been needling you a bit, calling you Governor Trudeau, talking about making Canada the 51st state. Did you have any interaction with him today?
No, not today. But that's not going to happen. Canadians are incredibly proud of being Canadian. One of the ways we define ourselves most easily is, well, we're not American.
When asked what he thought about the idea of Canada becoming part of the U.S., Trudeau said, "That's not going to happen." Simple, to the point, and definitely not up for debate. But Trudeau didn't stop there. He really dug into the core of Canadian identity. He explained that Canadians are incredibly proud of being Canadian. Now, for those of you who aren't too familiar with Canadian culture, this is a big deal. Canadians define themselves in part by their independence from the U.S. And that's not just about politics, it's cultural. Trudeau said, one of the easiest ways Canadians define themselves is that they are not Americans.
What I think is happening in this is President Trump, who's a very skillful negotiator, is getting people to be somewhat distracted by that conversation, to take away from the conversation around 25% tariffs on oil and gas and electricity and steel and aluminum and lumber and concrete, and everything the American consumers buy from Canada is suddenly going to get a lot more expensive if he moves forward on these tariffs. And that's something that I think we need to be focusing on a little bit more.
Think about that for a second. It's not just about national pride, it's about identity. While Canadians admire their neighbors to the south, there's a distinct sense of who they are and what they stand for. And being part of the U.S., well, that's just not in the cards. It's more than a political decision. It's about maintaining a sense of individuality. But here's where things got really interesting. Trudeau wasn't just dismissing Trump's comments as some kind of joke. He acknowledged that in his own way, Trump is a good negotiator. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could he say that? Given all the tension around trade between the U.S. and Canada, why would Trudeau give Trump any credit? Well, here's the thing. Trudeau wasn't praising Trump's negotiation style for any of the usual reasons. Instead, he pointed out that Trump's comments about annexing Canada were, in his view, a distraction from more important issues that were actually affecting both countries, and especially Canadians. What's really going on here? Let's dive into the trade side of things because that's where it gets serious. Trudeau explained that Trump's comments weren't just political banter, they were a clever way to shift focus. Instead of addressing the real issues like trade tariffs, Trump used the annexation idea as a way to divert attention. Now, what are these tariffs? Well, if you haven't been following, Trump has been pushing for 25% tariffs on a wide range of goods that Canada exports to the U.S. We're talking oil, gas, steel, concrete, electricity, and really just about everything Canada sells to America. These tariffs would be a huge blow to Canadian industries. And the kicker? It would affect American consumers too. Everything from the gas you put in your car to the price of steel used in construction could go up due to these tariffs. So while Trump was off making jokes about annexation, the real question was, and still is, how are these tariffs going to impact everyday people in both countries? But here's the interesting part. Trudeau didn't get caught up in a battle of egos or trade barbs with Trump. He took a more diplomatic approach. Instead of engaging in the annexation talk, he focused on the big picture, the need for Canada to remain strong and independent, and for both countries to handle their trade relationship responsibly. He reminded everyone that Canada's economic interests and the livelihoods of millions of Canadians are far more important than Trump's playful comments. Trudeau's message was clear. Canada's sovereignty is not for sale. Canadians aren't interested in being the 51st state. They're focused on protecting Canadian jobs, industries, and the economy from the potential fallout of these tariffs. And while he admitted that Trump is a skilled negotiator in getting people riled up, the focus needs to be on the real issues that affect people's lives, not on empty political distractions. What really struck me in this interview was Trudeau's ability to stay composed, to rise above the theatrics, and focus on the substance of the conversation. It wasn't about defending Canada against some wild idea. It was about taking a stand on what's important for Canadians, and that's something everyone on both sides of the border should be paying attention to. Now, as for Trudeau's resignation, that's another layer to this whole conversation. The interview touched on his decision to step down as Prime Minister, but it was clear that the leadership transition in Canada isn't about running away from issues. It's about facing those tough challenges head on. His focus was still on the long-term health of the Canadian economy and standing firm in the face of external pressures. So, while everyone is buzzing about the annexation talk, don't forget the bigger picture. The tariffs, trade wars, and the future of Canadian-American relations are where the real drama lies. In the end, this interview was more than just a back and forth over Trump's comments. It was about leadership, national identity, and standing up for what's right for your country, no matter who's making the headlines. And as for Canada being the 51st state, well, I think we can all safely say that's not going to happen anytime soon.